Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, March 12th, 2009. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. Well, this week we tag along with the brewers at the Hog Haus Brewery in Fayetteville, Arkansas, as they attempt something that hadn't been done at their brew house before, a Partigyle brew. Brewing 2 batches of beer from the same mash can be challenging, even at the homebrew scale, and we'll see how it works in this professional environment. If you're new to home brewing and would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. And you can follow me on Twitter, my username, Basic Brewing, all one word. And you can find me on Facebook as well. My username there is Basic Brewing James. And we also have a Basic Brewing Radio and Basic Brewing video page on Facebook. And if you become a fan of the show there, I'll be sending out occasional notices when shows are posted and such. And I've also posted photos of the Hog Haus Brew Session on my Facebook profile, and I'll put a public link to that album also on basicbrewingradio.com in the description of this episode. Our 2009 Brewers Logbooks are still in stock. You can check them out on our online store, basicbrewingshop.com. And as usual, thanks again to everybody clicking on our Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. Whenever you think of Amazon, think of us and click on our associate link first. It won't cost you any extra, and you'll be helping us bring you this show. We appreciate your support. We have a quick homebrew legislation update this week, so quick that I'm going to forego the special legislation update music. We hear from Mark Emily up in Washington State. Mark says, Senate Bill 5060, which would allow transportation of homemade beer and wine out of the House for purposes other than competitions, is scheduled for a House Commerce and Labor Committee hearing on Friday, March 13th at 8 o'clock in the morning. Mark says we need Washington residents to contact members of the Commerce and Labor Committee to ask for their support of the bill. The list is available at www.wahomebrewers.org/legal. Mark says any homebrewers who can make it down for the hearing are more than encouraged to do so. Once again, they can find more information and RSVP on the WAHA website at wahomebrewers.org. That's wahomebrewers.org. And Mark says, if we make it past this milestone without any hitches, we will be set for our second House floor vote soon after. So make sure you've gotten hold of your reps to let them know how to support the bill when it comes to a vote. Thanks again to everyone for helping. And by the way, Mark says, P.S., it always cracks me up a bit when you call us the WAHA. Mark says, I don't think I've ever heard anyone else say it like that. Most people just call us the WAHA, as in surprise. It rolls off the tongue much easier. I think it's because I'm around folks who use a lot of acronyms and instantly try to sound them out instead of saying them. WAHA. So good luck to everybody up there in the WAHA. Hope Friday the 13th turns out to be lucky for you guys. I've heard from 2 homebrewers who are in a similar situation. Both are moving from the U.S. to halfway around the world and need advice. Michael just moved to Geilenkirchen, Germany. Probably mispronouncing that. Germany. And Christoph is moving from Colorado Springs to Bern, Switzerland soon. Both are asking about resources for homebrewers over their new homes. For instance, where are the best places to get supplies? And Christoph is also asking about the legality of homebrewing in Switzerland as well. If you're familiar with the lay of the land as far as homebrewing is concerned in Switzerland and Germany, drop me a line and I'll pass that info along. You can find me at james@basicbrewing.com or just use the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. And make sure that your email address is correct so that I can get back to you. Mike from Algonquin, Illinois writes in with a quandary of his own. Mike says, I was recently tested for food allergies, and it turns out that I'm allergic to brewer's yeast. Yikes. According to my nutritionist, I must avoid all food and or beverages containing brewer's yeast for a minimum of 90 days. Mike says, I've been a home brewer for 4 years now, and my most recent batch, an ESB, just finally reached prime drinking time. Knowing I would probably be shot down, I tried convincing my nutritionist that because I put my beer through a long secondary fermentation, any traces of yeast would probably not be present in my beer when it's ready to drink. Unfortunately, she didn't go for it. Mike asks any questions as to how I am going to survive the next 3 months without beer. Well, Mike, I don't know about surviving without beer that long, but your nutritionist is probably right in denying you the beer that's been in your secondary. Because if you think about it, you could probably successfully bottle condition that beer, so there's likely enough brewer's yeast still in suspension, even though it's been through a long secondary, to give you a headache or a bellyache or whatever your symptoms are, and I'm sorry you're having those problems. However, you might want to look into filtering your beer. You can get your hands on equipment that you can use at home to filter your beer, and depending on the size of the filters that you use to polish your beer, you may be able to get most, if not all, of the yeast out. So there may be hope still. Hope it works out for you. Bill from Las Vegas writes in, I have a liquid Abbey ale yeast that I do not trust. If it doesn't start, can I use Safale SO4 or US05? I'm looking for info but cannot seem to find anything. This is for a Belgian triple. Well, Bill, the Safale yeasts will probably do the trick and ferment your beer. They'll turn the sugars into alcohol and CO2, but they won't do what may be just as important in this case, and that is to give your beer that Belgian, characteristic that you're looking for. That Abbey ale yeast has been isolated and cultivated from Belgian sources, and it's known and loved for the character that it brings to the beer. And the dry yeast that you mentioned, they're an English and an American strain. They will give you a cleaner tasting beer that will probably be less interesting in a way. So if you don't trust the liquid yeast, then you should make a starter before pitching it. Since this triple is probably a higher gravity beer, you should probably be making a starter anyway. And I always make a starter with liquid yeast, just as general practice. Starters make sure your yeast is viable, they kick up your cell numbers, and they help the yeast hit the ground running going into the fermenter. So if you're going to spend the money on good liquid yeast, make sure you get the most out of your investment and make a starter. It's easy to do. Now, since we last visited the Hog Haus brewery, there's been a change in the brewery. Mehmet Kadiev is now the head brewer, and our buddy David Mathews has been added on as assistant brewer. David alerted me that he and Mehmet were going to pull off a Partigyle brew session, making a big beer and a small beer from the same mash, and he asked me if I'd be interested in joining in. Well, of course. I said, sure. And when I got to the brewery that morning, I found that they'd started the morning a little rough. But they were following Plan B, as good brewers will do, to get the job done. Well, Mehmet and David, welcome to Basic Brewing Radio.
Glad to be here.
Thanks, James.
This is the second time you've been on the show, David. You were with us on it's just the second time, right?
Yeah, well, 3 times. I was in the one video as a mover of the giant hop trellis thing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you didn't have a speaking role in that one. But Mehmet, what are we doing here today?
We're brewing some beer. Today's a little different. We're doing a Partigyle brew. Basically, we're brewing our IPA recipe, but we're going to do first runnings for an Imperial IPA, and second runnings we're going to do a small beer.
And what are the challenges that you've got to think about in doing a brew session, especially with this system?
In this location, you got to think about your logistics as far as normally we have a hot liquor tank that's about 17 barrels, I think, and normally we use about 17 barrels on one brew. That includes cleanup and stuff. So we needed to heat more water for today. So I had to have another tank prepped for hot water for today's mash and other needs. So there's a little extra sparging going to happen because we're doing 2 brews, and that's just one. That was one obstacle we had to kind of work with.
We don't want to talk about the other one.
Equipment failure. Let's just call it that.
But part of being a brewer is rolling with the punches and just going with the flow. You know,
it's first when you first get into it, everyone talks about sanitization, keeping everything sanitary, but troubleshooting is the key word in brewing.
Tell us about what's in the mash.
Grain, malted barley. This recipe we got. It's primarily pale malt for the base. There's a little bit of Pilsner in there, and Munich for a little complexity, and very little crystal malt just to give it a little bit of color. But other than that, it's just filtered Fayetteville water.
And tell us about the brew system for those who haven't been to the Hog Haus. What kind of system are we looking at here?
We have a 3-vessel, 10-barrel system. We have a mash/brew kettle that we mash in, and we have a lauter tun. We'll transfer this mash over once we're done with conversion. We'll transfer it over to the lauter tun and get a bed going, and then recirc, start our runoff, and then at that point the kettle will have been rinsed and cleaned and ready for collection.
So then you'll start boil on the big beer.
Yeah, we're going to collect just the first runnings. Do we have a...
I think we're starting gravity on the running should be right around 23 bricks, depending on running a little bit thicker than we normally do to kind of boost that up some. And then I think we're doing a 120-minute boil, which is another reason why we cut down the crystal malt, is because we're going to be getting some better caramelization.
And then once you've got that boil going...
Yeah. Once we start this boiling, we're not going to stop runoff. We're going to... The vessel that we had warm water in to start this mash, we're going to drain that water out and collect the second runnings, the rest of the sugar in the grain there, and we're going to collect that second wort and store it in there until this boil is done. Get this nice and rinsed out, get all the hop tree rinsed out of it, and then transfer that back up into here and start boiling that.
So it's going to be a long day.
It's going to be a very long day.
So David, tell us about the recipes between the 2 beers.
The second beer, we're going to be adding an extra bag of Cara 65 from Thomas Fawcett, and then also about 20 pounds of chocolate malt to kind of make a bigger distinction between it and our pale ale for one thing, and then also to make up for the lack of crystal malt in the big beer. So it'll be an interesting brew day. We were recommended against doing that by the malt supplier, but...
And why is that?
He didn't really... He told us that a lot of crystal malt isn't actually fully converted. So
you have a risk of introducing unconverted, malt, but we're not adding a whole lot compared to the total grist. So, and what we're adding is fairly well converted. So, I don't have any qualms. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it.
Well, and when you think about steeping, doing an extract brew, that's essentially
we're just basically that's what we're doing.
Well, cool.
Those. So we just want a little bit of color just to differentiate that beer.
And Mehmet, tell us a bit about your background. You come from a home brewing background?
I started home brewing when I decided brewing is what I wanted to do, and I've never brewed all grain. I was always an extract steeper. I won't call it partial mash because it's not mash. I know some people call it partial mash, and unless you're mashing with base malts, it's not. But that was my limited budget and capabilities at the time. I know most people can relate to that. And I was in San Diego when I started brewing and when I got into brewing. And as you can imagine, all the microbrews that are there, if you're a beer lover, it's a place that gets you motivated. Unfortunately, we moved. We had to leave there and we came to Arkansas and ended up becoming the assistant brewer here and left home brewing to the wayside a little bit. I don't want to not ever do it, but I got the big system to play with now, so to speak. So time is limited. Free time.
Yeah. And David, I don't think have we heard about your background? Tell us about your background in brewing.
No, I started home brewing a couple years ago. Got into it immediately. I did one extract, one partial mash, and then since then I've done more than I care to mention, batches of all grain. And yeah, it's been a good ride, I guess. And then just January is when I started here as an assistant brewer, and working with Met's been very educational.
Very good.
Likewise, because he's got way more experience homebrewing than I do. I think I've done maybe 10 batches of homebrew, where Dave's probably done 10 times that, at least.
100 gallons a year, I think.
Well, cool. Well, right now we're coming up to temperature for our.
Right now we're doing our conversion rest. We're gonna do that 45 minutes, and then we'll heat up to stop conversion and transfer that over.
So we had some equipment problems, as you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
So the protein rest was a bit longer than you originally planned, but
yeah, I mean, we don't normally. We haven't really done many protein rests here. We usually don't. We've tried it a couple of times and overshot our temperature, so we just go ahead with conversion. But yeah, we went for it today because we had the time to do it with our hour and a half. Actually, it was longer than that if you count when we really started. 2.5 hour mill-in time with our various mills. At least we didn't have a pepper mill. Let's put it that way.
Well, we can attest that the Valley Mill it does pretty well under strenuous circumstances.
Yeah, any homebrewers out there that are familiar with that or interested in buying a used one that they've seen, go for it. Yeah. I'll attest it's a stout piece.
And it's not made anymore, so look out for it. All right. Well, we'll convert some starches into sugar, and we'll come back. All right, guys. You've got some scribblings down there in front of you. You've figured out the hopping schedule for the big beer. What's it shaping up to be?
It's going to be hoppy. We got some nugget in there in the beginning, 3 pounds, and then we're doing Chinook. Some more Chinook, relatively newer hop to us, Autumn, I believe is the pronunciation. A little U.S. Tettninger in there for some flavor, a little more Autumn, and then we'll finish it off with Cascade. Get that nice Cascade aroma in there.
So you're doing hop additions at 80,
60, 30, 20, 15, 10, 5, and a Whirlpool. And then we'll also dry hop it.
So and that's a lot of hops for what, 5.5 barrels? Is that what you're?
Yeah, it's going to be roughly around 5.5 starting before boil. Yeah.
So, and what are we likely to wind up with in the fermenter?
Well, there won't be much boil over. On this system, a full batch boils over, like literally. So we won't lose any in that regard because it's a smaller boil. And we won't have any blow off either on the fermenter. So just through maybe a half barrel.
Probably after boil down, we're going to be down to 4 barrels, you think? In the fermenter?
Yeah. Probably down to 4 barrels. I think 4 barrels final is probably what we're looking at. Between transfer lossage and filter, stuff like that, and boil over everything.
So it's a decent amount of hops for a beer.
Yeah, just a wee bit.
And we tasted a test batch that you did, and here comes the train.
Here comes the train.
So tell us
the
hop train.
So the batch we tested, it's about 12. I think I said 12.3%.
Yeah, 12.3.
About 120 IBUs. So. But at home, I had a little bit different hopping structure on it. Went more Centennial and Amarillo and a little bit of Cascade. But it was pretty good.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
Yeah, we only had a part of a pint, thank goodness, and that's something to consider when you're making a huge beer like this in a commercial environment. You're not going to be serving whole pints of this stuff.
No. I mean, we serve our higher gravity beers, our higher alcohol beers and brandy snifters. Overall volume, they're not that much smaller than our mugs. I think the snifters are 13 ounce, and our mugs are
14, and I think our mugs are 15.
Yeah. So, but an ounce is an ounce. Ounce alcohol is an ounce alcohol by volume, obviously. But yeah, it's definitely something to consider. And depending on what it clocks in at, we may put a limit, like 2 per customer or something like that. Just you don't want people wrecking after they leave your establishment, because then your establishment could get shut down. So,
and it was a very drinkable beer.
Oh,
at least your test batch was. So yeah, I could drink a lot.
To give you an idea, our current IPA, we had a happy oops, and our efficiency went up, and the current one on tap right now is 7.7%. Completely undetectable. And I've had customers not complain, but be like, I could only have 2 of these, and I realize I can't have any more. And the tall boys, the 23 ounces. But yeah, it's definitely something to consider when you're in a commercial environment as opposed to home brewing. Yeah.
So where are we at in the process?
Process right now, we've transferred our mash over. We're letting our bed set. We give about 10-15 minute rest. Let that bed set, create a nice filtration, and then we'll start our runoff. We'll start our recirc, and then once it runs clear, then we'll start our runoff.
So what were our mash temperatures and rests?
Let's see. We mashed 150. We did a protein rest at 130, and then we mashed at 150, and then we mashed out at 168. It climbs a little bit after that, but that's the target.
So cool. Yeah. So now we're just waiting. We'll be lautering soon.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, here we have the home brewer's tip here. We're about to open a bag of malt, and Mehmet is going to show us the proper way, or tell us the proper way. Remember, this is radio, so you have to...
Yeah, it's kind of hard without the visuals. When you look at your stitch at the top, you'll have the stitch. One side single, and the other side's got your actual stitch. You find where the single leads to the double on the one side, going from right to left, which is hard to explain on radio, but I'm looking at the single side, and it's actually going to be on my right side, which leads around to the double side. You cut
get a little pigtail hanging off there.
Yeah, you got the little tail hanging off there. You cut the first stitch or first couple strands, little short strands off that pigtail, and then you end up with a loop. You pull the loop through itself, and then just pull.
Oh, wow. It came right out. Look at that. That's a lot better than I did. I know what I did is I looked at the seam, and I just cut along the seam, and what I wound up with is tons of little bitty pieces of thread.
Yeah, you end up with you have no thread. I know some people are probably cutting the bags. You end up with all the particles from the bag. And
yeah, it works great. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at specialty grains to go on top of the...
So we already have our mash established, right? We're doing our first runoff right now. We're almost done collecting that wort for the Imperial IPA. We're going to introduce some Crystal 65 from Thomas Fawcett and a little bit of Franco Bell's chocolate, and that's going to add some color and body for a nice American amber.
And you're just adding it to the top of the mash?
We're going to add it on top, but we're going to stir it in.
But since you're doing a fly sparge and you're sprinkling water from the top, that's going to filter down through the mash.
It's going to get filtered through. Yeah,
or not through the mash, but through the lauter tun.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We're also about ready to stop collecting our first wort here.
We're about done.
Halfway full in the kettle.
What's our gravity looking like?
It's looking about 10. Not 10, 21, but 20, 21 bricks.
Which is about 84. 84. So cool. So and they're going to do a 120-minute boil in order to increase the gravity, and that will lessen the volume a bit.
Tasty chocolate malt.
I'm going to get some of that. Where are we at, David?
Now we're down in our basement into one of our keg-off serving tanks, our bright tanks, and we're just starting to, or getting ready to, run off our second runnings into the tank to hold it while we're boiling the first batch, and we're going to push it up under CO2 pressure. And then we're going to go over here now to the office and weigh some hops.
So we're in the bowels, the belly of the beast, down here.
Here we got oxygen, just medical grade oxygen. Then we have an inline oxygenation system that hits in right after our heat exchanger and our glycol trim unit. Right now the water coming in Fayetteville is about 55 degrees or so we aren't using the glycol trim and barely using any water actually. But
cool. Now we're coming around to the office downstairs, and we have a workbench. We have a couple of shelves of books, growlers, and Equate headache relief. I don't know why you guys would need that. So what are we doing? We're weighing hops.
Well, we're going to weigh hops because we got a lot of hops, and we're just about ready to start needing to add them. So we have a high-tech double cantilever spring scale that's off by about 3 ounces. So we usually just crank it down to pretend like it's accurate. And
well, whatever works. Now we're going to go to the fridge.
This is our hop fridge here. It also serves as a root beer carbonation and yeast. We have 5 gallons of yeast from a batch of Curly, which is our preferred hop propagating beer. And you can see we have, probably about 300 pounds of hops in-house right now. For our first edition, we're using Nugget and Chinook.
All right. Getting boxes of hops. That would last me for a very long time in the homebrew setting. Coming back out of the fridge, going back to the office. And I can't wait to smell these things. What's the alpha acid on these nuggets?
The nuggets right now look like 11.2, and this is the end of the first batch. We just got our 2008 contract hops in, but these ones are still pretty nice and fresh. Last time I smelt them, I think we're going with 3 pounds of nugget. Does not fit into one of our little hot buckets here.
How long would that last you at home, 3 pounds?
Me? About 3 months or so. No. 3 pounds. A little over a year. I like Nugget. Nugget's one of my favorite bittering hops.
Well, they smell fresh. Boy, those smell good. And we will continue to weigh these out, and then we'll go upstairs and dump them in, or jump them in, whichever way.
We haven't been drinking, by the way.
And we're taking a look at. Oh yeah, yeah. Those. We're looking at the second runnings now. It's been recirculating through the lauter tun. It's darkened up nicely.
Oh yeah, it's got a nice amber tinge to it now. I expect it to get a little bit darker before it gets lighter.
Yeah, that's nice. Is it about time to add some hops?
About 7 minutes.
7 minutes till the adding of the hops, the first round?
We're pretty precise with our hop schedule timing.
It might as well be.
Might as well be precise with something, right?
All right, we're ready for 3 pounds of nugget to go into the boil. Here it goes. Oh, doesn't sound like much, but wow. Man, that smells good.
Yeah, it smells awesome. I love nugget.
And there's going to be more hops in, 10 minutes? 20 minutes. Chinook comes next. More hops, more hops, more hops.
And you kind of get right away from that aroma. You kind of get from the nugget, you get that harshness from it. That's why it's a good bittering as opposed to being a multi-purpose. I guess you could use it for whatever, but
Be a nice experiment. Do some late wort hopping. Okay, now we're preparing for the featured player in this game, in this play, and that is the yeast. And David, what are we doing?
We're collecting yeast. You want to try some? And what do you think?
Pretty bitter.
Yeah, it's got a lot of hops in it because we dry hop this beer.
I would cut that and use that.
So what process are you guys using here?
Cone-to-cone transfer.
Just like at home.
Just like at home. Like all you homebrewers have all your fancy conicals. Now, basically, a homebrew adaptation would be saving your yeast cake at the bottom of your carboy, bottling that up, refrigerating it, and then pitching it the next time you homebrew. We use our yeast for upwards of 10, 12 generations. Not something usually you'd want to do as a home brewer just because of you're dealing with smaller quantities and such, but yeah.
Sealed vessel. Start to finish here too, though.
Yeah, we're sealed vessel, so
what you've got is you've got 2 conical fermenters side by side. What's the capacity? How many barrels here?
they're 10-barrel fermenters.
So David was saying that there's probably
just about a barrel of yeast in there.
that'll do. And they're hooking up a hose. They've sanitized the hose, obviously, and they are hooking up a hose from the bottom of the conical fermenter that's got beer. It's got a pale ale, and they are hooking that up to the empty fermenter that the Imperial IPA is going to go into. And how much yeast are you going to use?
I think we're using like 10 gallons.
I thought we were going 20 or 30.
20 or 30 gallons. I don't know. That's like more than how much beer we have. We don't even have 30 gallons of beer. No.
Well, you need a lot of yeast for a big
old beer. We do need a lot
beer.
of yeast for this, but there's less beer.
Yeah. So we have the original gravity. We're actually the beer is settling in the kettle, and our original gravity looks like 25 bricks.
1.1.
It's about 1,100. So that's a big beer.
We're going to end up just pitching probably everything we can get from this pail.
Yeah. Probably.
Which I don't know if there's 30 gallons in there, but
it'll
be close. I mean, we did have to bleed some off because that pail was dry hopped, so we bleed off some of the trub that has settled out.
And you'll be able to. There's kind of a sight glass in the hose.
Yeah, we'll be able to see when it starts running to beer, and then we'll cut it.
Cool. This is exciting. Just think of how many homebrew 5-gallon batches you can make just out of that waste over there.
That right there is less than our pitchable quantity. I mean, more. That's more than our pitchable quantity. That's about 2 gallons right there. And our pitchable quantities come in from White Labs. 10-barrel pitchable quantity is a gallon jug filled about 3/4 of the way, and then a pint filled about 3/4 of the way. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but you wouldn't pitch that on a stronger beer. We don't pitch that on the pail. We do that on our curly tail. And that same quantity for our wheat yeast is good for our wheat beer.
Great. Just think. It's, what? What time is it? 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
Something like that.
And you're halfway done.
Yeah.
So here we are. We wound up pitching 10 gallons of yeast into the Imperial IPA just for clarification purposes.
Yeah.
Since you're essentially, it's a big beer, but it's half the volume that you're used to pitching into. So.
A little less than half than what we're usually pitching to. So
where are we at? We got another beer in the kettle.
Yeah, we're running off our second beer, our small beer, our second runnings, and we're just about there collection-wise as far as volume goes. We've got another 40 minutes before we're at a boil, though, roughly. So we have some time to maybe eat some more, get something to eat.
I think we're going to eat some more. Smells really good.
Oh, it's going to be...
Yeah,
we're excited.
How would you describe the character of this wort?
This one has come out a little. It looks like a red ale as far as the color goes, I would say. It's got a nice ruby tint to it.
Yeah, especially when you hold it up to the light, it's got some nice red highlights.
Creamy white head.
What's our? I don't know where to turn.
Get it the first time.
Yeah, what's our hopping schedule look like, David?
Oh, it looks like we're going. Well, defer to Matt.
Matt's got area.
We're going to do a 60-minute boil on this. We're still going to do 60, right?
Maybe 45, but
we need to boil off some water. So we're going to do a 60-minute boil. We'll do a pound and a half of nugget to bitter. And then we're going a 20-minute addition of U.S. Tettinger, 2 pounds. And then we'll do a blowout with 3 pounds of the U.S. Tet and a pound of Cascade, just for get that aroma in there. And we'll end up dry hopping this too.
That'd be really nice. I mean, we tasted the wort, and it's not nearly as roasty as what I expected.
I was a little concerned to begin with too. It was coming out smelling like about a robust porter. The first runnings were smelling like.
At the top of the louder ton, it was smelling like a stout. So.
Yeah, but it's been a long time since then.
Clarity's excellent on it.
Yeah, it looks really good. Well, this has been a day, and I'm going to bail on you guys, but you got a lot more work to do. Anything? I mean, besides the equipment snafu in the morning, did everything pretty much go as planned?
Yeah, for what we did have planned, I think, like you said, except for the equipment issue in the morning, I'd say everything kind of went as planned.
A little better than I was expecting, which makes me a little nervous for the next 2 hours. But
yeah, we still have time for things to go wrong.
Yeah, knock wood and throw salt over your shoulder.
Actually feeling a little bit under the weather right now from all the hops from the Imperial. So might be a little bit long chill phase on the next beer. So.
Well, I wish you guys luck. I can't wait to taste both of these beers, and I appreciate your inviting me to come and hang out with you guys.
We appreciate you coming. Thanks for helping us out. Put you to work a little bit.
Yeah, I worked. Not like the brew session with the the maple sap brew session with the girls, where Andy and I didn't work any at all. You guys put me to work, and I appreciate that. So
cool. Thanks for coming.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, James.
Well, thanks again to Mehmet and David. I felt bad about abandoning them while they still had a lot of work to do, but I had family obligations. Had to take care of them. They did give me the honor of pitching the last hops into the kettle of the Imperial IPA, and I can't wait to taste that. It's going to be great. They also gave me a taste of an IPA that was still in the fermenter, and it was way good. Those guys are going to be brewing some really good beers down there, and if you're down on Dixon Street in Fayetteville, Arkansas, be sure to check them out. And you can also check out pictures from the brew session on my Facebook profile. That's Basic Brewing, all one word, James, or through the link in the description of this episode on basicbrewingradio.com. Remember, we've got the Brewer's Logbook and our new Basic Winemaking Introduction to Wine Kit DVD out in our online store. If you have any brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com, and please don't forget to tell us where you're from, and check your email address to make sure that I can get back to you. Check out our low-tech lagering and decoction mashing DVD on basicbrewingshop.com. You can also see Introduction to Extract Home Brewing and Stepping into All Grain, where we take you through the all grain process, from milling your grain to collecting your wort. We got combo deals, and you can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com. And if there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order it online from us in our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. We got your shirts. Warm weather will come eventually. And also, thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We appreciate the support there. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the link are The Unfettered Mind, Writings from a Zen Master to a Master Swordsman, and Fudgemania. Thanks again, everybody. And remember, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on the site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping. We appreciate your support. Fudgemania. We also have an associate link to the Apple Store and to audible.com. That's all until next week. Until then, thanks for listening. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dodson down there in Austin, Texas. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.